Men shouldn't be jealous of men. That's a female trait. You mad because you push dimes and I sell weight? Let's get into it. And in the words of Cedric the Entertainer, I wish your mother would. Stop playing with me. What's good, YouTube, man? It's your boy, Darian, man. I'm the BowTie Fragrance Guy. On this channel, we talk about fragrance, we talk about fashion, we talk about grooming. If you're going to smell good, you might as well look good as well. So if you're into looking good and smelling great, hit subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications by hitting the bell icon as well. So anytime a new video gets uploaded on YouTube, you'll be one of the first people to get notified. Guys, on today's video, we're going to be talking about the new Dior Homme Parfum. I finally have it in hand, and we're going to get into kind of talking about this fragrance and kind of comparing it, contrasting it to the original Dior Homme Parfum. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on it. Guys, if you have not yet picked up your copy of the Gentleman's Blueprint, you're missing out. This is a hard copy of it. And one of the chapters in here, in chapter 6, it talks about purpose and vision, becoming who you're meant to be. And, you know, one of the big things, and major reasons I wrote this is because when you're en route to purpose, when you're en route to really putting in the work to become who you're really meant to be and fulfilling your destiny, maximizing your potential in life, you don't have time for jealousy, right? Like I said, jealousy and pursuing purpose, those two things don't really line up because, again, when you are busy pursuing purpose, you're busy, becoming and maximizing potential, coming, who you're supposed to be and who you're meant to be. You don't really have time for that kind of stuff. Like I said, jealousy is a female trait. So you won't find that over here with guys on this channel. But there's a lot of great stuff in the ebook. So if you haven't picked up your copy yet, make sure you get your copy. It's only $9.99. And every week moving forward, I'm going to be giving away, picking a winner and giving away a 5 ml decant of any fragrance in my collection. I'll be making those announcements on the channel. 5 ml decant, anything in my collection. And also have some other cool gifts and giveaways I'm going to give away to each week's winner. So make sure I link it down below. Get your copy of the Gentleman's Blueprint. So that way you don't end up being a lame. All right, guys, so I'm going to run the intro, and when we'll come back, we're going to get into it. If you want to hear my thoughts on the new Dior Homme Parfum, you know the routine. Keep it locked right here. Let's get it.
The BowTie Fragrance Guy.
All right, guys, we're back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked in. Let's jump into it. The new Dior Homme Parfum, released in 2025. Here is the bottle. The bottle is cool, although it is really, really small, man. I mean, compared to the original, this is a really small bottle. This is a 75 ml, and I think it retails for $180. I think I bought mine from Nordstrom's, if I'm not mistaken. So when you look at this one compared to the original, this is a very small bottle. Yeah, very small. I'm definitely a fan of more of the original bottle. The aesthetics in this one are just better to me. And this is a very, very miniature bottle. Almost makes you seem like, or feel like, it's not the same amount of juice in there, but both of them are 75 mLs. And you have the Dior Homme there, in a nice silver plaque. It says Parfum there at the bottom, and then there's batch code and all that stuff at the bottom of the bottle as well. Some of the main notes in this one is a gourmand amber accord, patchouli, vetiver, coumarin, hay, and iris. So guys, I'm gonna be very very practical with this review. Does this fragrance smell great? Yes. It smells fantastic. But if you're a fan of the original Dior Homme Parfum, I can see how some people are going to be very disappointed with this release. When you first spray it, you're going to get elements of the original. So the beautiful iris note is still there, but it goes in a totally different direction on the dry down. Even when I first put my nose to it just from the atomizer, it reminds me of some of these more modern fragrances that I'm not a fan of some of them because they all start to smell very similar. For instance, one of the fragrances that comes to mind when I smell this is this fragrance right here. Jean Paul Gaultier L'Homme Elixir. So this fragrance smells great, but this era that this fragrance came out in, the Elixir, smells very similar to like the Azzaro Pour Homme, the Most Wanted. So you had the Most Wanted, then you had the Most Wanted Eau de Parfum. I don't even remember which was which, but the one that had the black cap and the kind of gold, not gold, or brown ambery bottle, I think is the Azzaro, the Most Wanted Parfum, or something like that. All those fragrances that came out in that era of time had a very similar scent profile. And that's kind of sort of what this fragrance smells like when it dries down. The opening is beautiful because, again, you get the iris note there, and it's going to be very reminiscent of the original. One of the main things that's missing from this fragrance is that leather note. And that, to me, is a big game changer. So this does smell like a more, I guess you could say, modern interpretation of the original Dior Homme Parfum, but it just lacks the depth and the complexity of the original. You know, so again, if you're a diehard fan of this one, the original, and you were expecting something more closely in line with the original, you're probably not going to be a big fan of the new release. Now, again, I want to be clear about something. This fragrance does smell great. It smells great. But again, the downside for me is that it smells so much like a lot of these other modern designer fragrance releases. And that's kind of disappointing because, again, I'm such a huge fan of the original. Now, again, most people that get this, especially if you didn't have a chance to experience the original Dior Homme Parfum, you're probably gonna like the fragrance because, again, it is a beautiful fragrance. It smells like parts of the original, at least the iris part of it, with that very modern, familiar, I would say, designer fragrance DNA. And that's really the best way that I could describe it. And if you get a chance to smell it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When you put your nose to the atomizer, you're gonna think about stuff like this, trust me. The Jean Paul Gaultier L'Homme Elixir. So it has that modern designer fragrance DNA to it. And but like I said, for a person like me, that's such a big fan of the original Dior Homme Parfum, if you're gonna make a remake, I would expect it to be more along the lines of how Tom Ford did with Noir Extreme. So they had Noir Extreme and they had Noir Extreme Parfum, which you can definitely tell is a flanker of the original, but it's deeper, more woodier, a heavier, a little bit darker scent profile. And I kind of wish that's the direction that they chose to go in with this one, instead of making it more modern and resembling what you smell too often, in my opinion, in a lot of the more modern designer fragrances. So without me, of course, being there at the table, sitting down with them and going through what the goal was with this fragrance release, that's what I think it was. To make a more modern interpretation of the original Dior Homme Parfum. And the way that they did that, in short, was by giving it a more familiar fragrance DNA, which a lot of the designer fragrances are using today. So, you know, from that standpoint, again, for me, one of the lovers of the original Dior Homme Parfum, that was a downside to this fragrance for me. Now, it's a fragrance that I can rock again, like I said, and wear because it does smell great, but it just smells too familiar to everything else that's out there nowadays. Now, it does perform pretty good. I got about 7 hours out of this. And like I said, my favorite part of it, though, is that opening. Because I get the iris, but that iris note really kind of starts to die down after the first 30 minutes or so, 30 minutes to an hour. It kind of disappears, and then you're left with a very familiar scent profile that you smell with a lot of other things. But, you know, again, this is kind of my initial thoughts on it. I want to wear some more and come back and give you guys a more thorough review of this fragrance. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think it's a great fragrance, especially if you don't have the original. Trust me, you're probably going to love it when you smell it because it does smell great. If you love the note of iris, you'll definitely probably be a fan of this as well. My advice to you would be just don't go and smell the original Dior Homme Parfum, because this was certainly in my mind a masterpiece of a fragrance. A masterpiece of a fragrance. But that's, to me, kind of the current state of the designer fragrance market, man. They don't really make stuff like this anymore. They don't make stuff like this anymore. And I wish they would, because fragrances like this were so good, so good. It's almost like, I know you heard people say, or use the term niche quality. Niche quality. Like this smell like niche quality. This is very modern day designer fragrance quality per se, if that makes sense. And that's really the best way I can kind of put a bow on what I think about the original Dior Homme Parfum. But again, we'll come back and do a more in-depth review with this one. I just want to kind of give you guys my initial thoughts. I will have it linked if you want to if you do want to check it out. I got mine from Nordstrom's, again, about 180 bucks. So I'll make sure I link it down below. So what are you guys' thoughts on the new Dior Homme Parfum? Have you had a chance to smell it? If so, what are your thoughts? I would love to hear from you down in the comments section. Now, as always, I sincerely appreciate you guys' time and your attention to these videos. You don't have to watch, but you do, and I sincerely appreciate that. Now, don't forget, guys, to take a few moments to like, comment, and subscribe. Please make sure you're sharing these videos out to some other folks that you think could use the information or find it entertaining. Because I'm your guy, Darren. I'm the BowTie fragrance guy. I love to look good, and of course, I love to smell fantastic. So until next time, keep looking good, keep smelling even better. I'll catch you on the flip side.